I'm really glad that Marvel didn't like ruin this entire show, this entire season. Real quick, before we get started, I wanted to let you know that in a week or two, I will be changing the channel name from Moon Movie Review, and I will be changing it to the Movie Watcher Club. They won't start for a week or two, and nothing else is changing, just the name. But I wanted to give you a heads up. I hope you like the new name. Hey movie watchers, welcome to today's review of Jessica Jones Season 3, starring Kristen Ritter, Rachel Taylor, Eka Darville, and Carrie Ann Moss. There's a bunch of different directors, so I'm not going to name them. If you're new to this channel, I talk about my likes, my dislikes, and then give you the breakdown. All my reviews have spoilers, so consider this to be fair warning. And as always, if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share for me. Okay movie watchers, let's review. So season 3 starts off kind of badly in the first episode with Jessica going international and basically just kidnapping, taking a kid away from her father, which has all kinds of problems and legal ramifications. But after this, the show gets much better. Trish Walker has been training and honing her skills. She's been using them to save people and set bad guys up to get caught and arrested. She keeps trying to team up with Jessica Jones, but there's kind of she doesn't really want to, but it eventually does end up happening. Jessica meets Eric at her local bar. He has the power to sense evil in others, like with his mind and headaches, but more than that, he's actually able to kind of sense the degree in which they're evil. Closer he gets to someone, the worse his headache gets and the more like severe his pain is. Jessica gets stabbed when Greg tries to kill Eric for blackmailing him. Jessica and Trish then team up to go after Greg, who winds up being actually a very formidable bad guy, which was pretty awesome. Once they catch Greg, we start to notice Trish kind of goes off the deep end with her powers, and she ultimately winds up becoming a bad guy herself. She ends up killing a few people, and Jessica ultimately catches her and turns her in against her will. Starting with my likes, like number 1, I'm really glad that Marvel didn't like ruin this entire show, this entire season, by adding a bunch of nonsense. All the social justice warrior type stuff that they've been doing in their movies this year, that's not here. It's not in this season, which is actually kind of really nice. I mean, they actually wrote a real story and gave characters like real weaknesses and real problems to overcome. I actually really enjoyed this season. I was quite surprised, and I expected them to use this last season to really kind of push that SJW agenda that it feels like, let's be honest, feels like they've been pushing it for a long time now. But thankfully, they didn't in this season. They did a really good job here, I think. Like number 2, my favorite thing in the whole season was how they brought in a real bad guy who doesn't have any powers. That's interesting. It made the season very, very interesting for me. Because in the first season, you have Kilgrave who has powers. In the second season, the bad guy is sort of kind of her mother, mostly. She also has powers. In season 3, the main bad guy is actually just someone who's really intelligent. He's a guy with no powers, but his intelligence, that's his power. And I think that brought a whole new dynamic to not only the season, but to the overall story as a whole. This character, Greg, was outsmarting them at almost every single turn. His whole motivation became about how he earned his power. He earned his intelligence through decades of hard work and studying and learning and growing and educating himself. Whereas the other people, the people with powers, they're cheaters. That's kind of what he calls them in the story. He calls them cheaters because they didn't earn their powers. It just happened that they got powers somehow. And probably my favorite part about the entire show. Like number 3, I really think the writers pushed the story. They really pushed the story in the narrative to take a lot of risk, and I think it really paid off. Every character had real issues going on in their life that they really had to face and come to terms with, and we get to explore all of them. Jessica kind of being a hero and figuring out, her struggle this whole time has been about hero, not a hero, do the right thing, don't want my powers, but I gotta do it. Trish loses her mother, and she's always wanted these abilities, but now she has them, but now they literally have absorbed her. They've overcome her. her. Malcolm coming to terms with the things he's done with Hogarth and Associates to get what he wants, and now he's got to kind of deal with himself and live with himself. Jerry dealing with her ALS, and it's getting pretty badly, and then she basically sabotages her own relationships on accident. And Eric, I think, ultimately learns to use his powers for good instead of just to kind of gamble and kind of cheat his way through life. Plus, there are like 5 bad guys in this season. The main bad guy you have is Greg, who I think is awesome. Bad guy number 2 is kind of like Hogarth's and Associates. If you look closely, I feel like they're bad guys. 3 being like the new detectives that kind of come on board, and they're really looking to stick it to Jessica. 4, the shame in living with their own mistakes kind of takes on its own bad guy essence in the season. And then you have Trish. Trish ultimately becomes a killer herself, so she's the 5th bad guy. I honestly just felt that this season was really deep and really intense, and I really enjoyed it. Moving on to my dislikes. Dislike number 1, there are some camera play issues or problems with the cinematography, if you will. Mostly they involve Trish's character. They do a really bad job in helping us understand the whole night vision thing that she has. And you have a fight scene with her and Jessica towards the end of the show where there's like this light on Jessica for production purposes so that we as the movie watcher can see what's happening. But this is supposed to be showing us that Trish can see in the dark, and this is kind of her strength and her one and only opportunity to physically beat Jessica in a fight. But there's this production light that's right on Jessica like this whole time, and it's just really weak. It's supposed to help me, the movie watcher, feel like Trish can actually see in the dark, but that's not what's happening on screen, so it's really weak and I didn't like it. Dislike number 2, there is a whole entire episode. I think it's episode 11 or 12, I can't remember, somewhere towards the end. But I think more than half of that episode, maybe 3/4 of the episode, is just like repeating itself from like a previous episode. It's just repeating things that have already happened, but it's kind of showing some extended scenes. It's showing some some scenes start earlier and some scenes go longer. Some scenes are told from a different vantage point, all to kind of just give us a better understanding of the things that are going on. But honestly, I feel like most of this episode is a complete waste. I was literally quite bored. I thought about taking a nap and just waking up in like 10 minutes and seeing if anything had changed. I didn't feel like it was necessary, and I honestly think they could have just given us all of that footage, all of that information in one episode, and we would have been fine. And that's it. I don't really have much to complain about this season. Movie watcher question. What do you think of the Jessica Jones series as a whole? And do you think this last season was a really good send-off? Okay, movie watchers, here's the breakdown. I'm giving the writing an 8.5 out of 10, as I think they did a fantastic job with this season. Other than a few minor mistakes, which I think are meaningless, overall they did wonderful. The acting is also getting an 8.5 out of 10 because, quite frankly, I was pretty impressed by them in this season. Every character got pushed, and I believed every single one of them going through the problems that they were going through. I don't think it's Oscar worthy or anything, but still, great job. The cinematography is getting a 6 out of 10. There were moments that I thought were brilliant, and there were moments that I thought were terrible, like Trish Walker in her night vision. I am giving the directing a 7 out of 10, as there are always a handful of directors that shoot these series, and the directing started off bad for me, and then that last episode just kind of repeats things, and I wouldn't have made that decision. So overall, not bad, but some things just could have been avoided, I think. Overall, Jessica Jones Season 3 is getting a 7.5 out of 10 from me, which is actually pretty good if you compare it to some of the other Marvel series that we've seen on Netflix. But I won't name any names. Iron Fist, Luke Cage. But I won't name any names. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this review, please like, subscribe, and share for me. I've got more reviews and discussions coming your way, so check back soon for those, and I'll see you on the next one.